Studies show that no matter how bad the economy becomes, Native workers do not take farm jobs, making migrant farm workers vital to our economy. And yet these workers need support and protection. We learn how the Migrant Farm Worker Project is doing just that. It's all here on the next Latino Motion. Join us.
Choose to get lost in the woods to gain experience in forest management.
Choose to travel through time to understand the past.
Choose to soar to pursue a career in dance.
Stockton University offers 50 high-quality academic programs, small class sizes, and affordable tuition. Choose to match your interests and talents at one of New Jersey's nationally ranked universities.
Latino Motion with Bert Lopez is presented by Latino Motion Public Affairs Media, a New Jersey nonprofit corporation, and Stockton University. This edition of Latino Motion with Bert Lopez is brought to you by the HD Studios at the campus of Stockton University. Funding for Latino Motion is provided by Atlanticare, a member of Geisinger, Atlantic City Electric, energy for a changing world, and South Jersey Gas. Welcome to Latino Motion, a weekly interview show highlighting issues impacting New Jersey's Latino community while advancing understanding of Latino cultural heritage and contributions to our society. And here is your host, Bert Lopez.
Buenos dias and welcome to Latino Motion. Migrant farm workers are a vital part of New Jersey's agricultural sector and the state's economy, but they're also in need of protection. Joining me to discuss efforts to help migrant workers is Violeta Gomez de Mayo with the Migrant Farm Worker Project. Violeta, welcome to Latino Motion.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So tell me a little bit about the importance of farm workers, especially here in New Jersey.
Well, like you said, they're such a huge part of the economy, and I know that in New Jersey alone, there's over 7,000 acres of farmland. So the need for agricultural workers is there. Unfortunately, is not a lot of American workers, U.S. workers who want to do those types of jobs, and over the years it's been less and less. So the government has created different programs to try to address the need for farm workers.
It's interesting you mentioned the fact that Americans do not take those jobs. And there was a study done that shows that even at the worst economic times, Americans are not willing to take farm labor jobs. And that's why there's such a need for migrant workers to take and carry out those functions.
Absolutely, and it's a very difficult job, oftentimes performed under very strenuous work conditions. A lot of times the workers don't really get a lot of rest. They have to work very long days under sometimes extreme weather conditions. From what I've seen doing outreach, the housing is not always great. There's overcrowding and all sorts of different issues that come up.
I know there was also another report, this is the New American Economy, talking about just the blueberries workers here in New Jersey. And apparently they're almost $80 million a year. It's the biggest crop that New Jersey has. And they still need, even though you have the other machines, you still need those blueberries to be picked by hand. And there's about 6,000 workers to do that for the blueberries.
Definitely, and I mean, even the number is going up within the H-2A program, which is something that the government has created to bring foreign workers to sort of fill that need. The number of workers applying have actually gone up. Even from last year, we've seen about a 30% increase, so yeah, definitely.
So you have this project, which is the Migrant Farm Worker Project. Why is it so important to have this project?
So we basically provide free legal assistance to migrant farm workers. And there's a huge need because from what I've seen and we've seen, there's all sorts of exploitation going on and wage violations and also discrimination against these people who are really not familiar with the U.S. legal system and its laws. There are all sorts of language barriers that they face. They're oftentimes in isolated places. And so it's important to provide provide them with recourse for them to be able to fulfill their jobs, but be able to be paid, what they should be and have at least humane living conditions.
Sure. And if they need help, who should they contact?
They can contact us, myself. I am basically spearheading the Farm Worker Project. We're out of the Vineland office, and we also have a legal secretary that works with me, basically with cases and doing outreach, actually going out to the farms.
And we want to talk about some of those problems or issues you're working with. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Latino Motion. Welcome back to Latino Motion. Joining me again is Violeta Gomez de Mello with the Farm Worker Project. As we discuss more about farm worker rights, and I just want to reiterate where we were talking about the importance of farm workers. And I just found that study where it shows really how important it is to have these migrant farm workers. It shows that in 2011, when there was high unemployment, only 268 U.S.-born workers applied for 6,500 jobs. So to reemphasize the fact that these migrant farm workers are not taking away American jobs.
Absolutely not. And actually one of the requirements for the H-2A program is that agricultural workers basically have to establish that they really don't have enough U.S. workers in order for them to bring over foreign workers. So yeah, there's definitely a crucial need. And as I said, it's not decreasing anytime soon.
So let's talk about some of the problems. Obviously, you're working, helping these farmers, or farm workers rather, with legal issues. What are some of the issues you encounter?
The biggest issues I would say we encounter, and we've encountered right now, we've actually just filed a lawsuit against a person who was operating a farm. And basically there's a lot of wage issues, workers not being paid what their contract stipulates that they should be paid. Also just discrimination issues, because a lot of times, these are people coming from other countries that don't speak the language, and they're being taken advantage of. Also, as I mentioned before, overcrowding, housing issues, issues relating to improper use of pesticides. But the biggest issue is probably the wage issue.
So what is the wage issue? What should be the minimum wage for a farm worker?
So legally, per the FSLA, workers have to be paid either the minimum wage in New Jersey, which is about $8.60 an hour, or they have to be paid the adverse wage rate, which is higher than New Jersey minimum wage. And usually, a lot of times for the H-2A workers, their contract, the wage that they have to be paid is higher than the minimum wage, as in the case that we have now. They were actually supposed to be getting paid about $12.19 an hour, and they weren't getting paid nearly as much as that because they were being deducted all sorts of fees, these hiring fees for being recruited, as well as expenses for meals, even though the contract actually said that the farmer should have provided sort of cooking supplies for them, and they didn't.
How about for piece workers? They get paid per unit. Does that also apply in terms of the hourly rate?
It does, yes. And though that wage would be calculated differently based on what the labor actually consists of. But it all depends really on their contract as far as the H-2A workers.
As you know, I mentioned to you off camera, my dad was a farm worker. He came here from Puerto Rico as a farm worker. There was no such thing as a contract. But typically you do see that they do get a contract.
Yes, as far as H-2A workers, yes, they should get a contract as soon as they're recruited, which basically lists all of the contingencies and everything that, it basically lays out all the requirements that have to be met as far as what the employer should provide, what they should be paid an hour, and things of that nature, the length of the contract.
So it should all be written out.
Yeah.
Very good. We want to continue this discussion. We'll be right back with more Latino Motion.
Thank you for connecting with Latino Motion. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas.
Feliz Navidad.
My name is Adrian Lopez, and I wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I wish you a Merry Christmas. I wish you a Merry Christmas. I wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Welcome back to Latino Motion. Joining me again is Violeta Gomez de Mayo with the Migrant Farm Worker Project as we discuss more about farm worker rights. And I know we were talking about some of the issues that you see. And let's talk about how human trafficking also comes into play with some of these farm workers.
Sure. Well, a lot of times these workers are being brought over and, as I mentioned before, charged these hiring fees that they then are actually forced to pay back. And so it's essentially a form of like debt bondage. So basically the farm worker says, well, okay, you're going to come work for me, but I'm going to charge you this much, that you have to pay me back from whatever it is you're getting paid normally through your weekly wages. And a lot of times they're forced to do it. They're coerced, and that is sort of what human trafficking is forced labor or coerced labor, or labor that is basically through the threat of harm or physical harm. And that's kind of what we're seeing, especially with the case that we're handling now, is the workers, their documents are being taken away, and they're afraid, to speak out. They don't know what their rights are. And they're basically being forced to pay back this money, to have this money deducted from their wages. And so what they're actually getting paid is lower than what their contract stipulates and lower than the minimum wage. So it's a violation of the FSLA and also a violation of trafficking laws.
So obviously there are laws, both federal and state, that protect migrant farm workers?
Yes. Federal, again, there's the FSLA, the Fair Standard Labor Act, and also the Seasonal Migrant Farm Worker Protection Act are the two federal laws that protect workers. And obviously the latter one is the one that protects migrant farm workers as far as employment issues and what they should be paid and so forth.
And obviously many of these farm workers may not know about your services, and I know you also do outreach to the farms. Tell me about that outreach.
Yes, and that is basically the main mechanism that we have for informing them of their rights. Is we go directly to the camps and we tell them, we hand out brochures that basically summarize, what services we provide. We ask them questions to get a sense of, how are things going there. A lot of times they're, reluctant to speak out because unfortunately, a lot of times the farm workers will tell them that we're coming, will tell them, sort of what they should say. But we give them the information, and, we always tell them, if there are any issues that come up now or even later, we can help you because you have these rights, and they're legally, protected rights.
So essentially, you will examine each case as they come along, and you'll be able to provide them advice. Not all cases need to go to court, right? You're able to also settle with directly with the farmer.
Yes, especially in some cases, and we do have restrictions as far as who we can represent. As far as there's some, they have to be sort of eligible aliens, like they have to have some sort of legal status here in the country. We can't really represent undocumented workers. But we can certainly refer them, to other services.
They still have some rights, and there's still agencies out there that could advocate in their behalf if they're taking advantage of.
Such as Legal Services of New Jersey and other agencies, which we're happy to refer them to. A lot of times also, for example, if a worker is injured while on a farm,
actually, that's a subject I want to get covered in a minute.
All right.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more Latino Motion. Welcome back to Latino Motion. We're once again with Violeta Gomez de Mayo with the Migrant Farm Worker Project, and we're discussing the farm worker rights. And one of the things you started to mention was if they're injured on the job, they still have rights and are able to collect when they're disabled. Tell me about that.
Yeah, certainly they're entitled to certain protections if they suffer an injury, but they don't actually get or require any medical treatment. They can certainly file a complaint with OSHA. But if they are in fact injured and they do need serious medical treatment and they're not able to work because of their injury, yeah, they're certainly entitled to file, for workers' compensation for some sort of disability. But usually we refer those types of cases to private attorneys who are very happy to take those cases. But yeah, certainly they're entitled to protections.
Now I know that you in your office does a lot, but you could also use some volunteers. Tell me about that.
Yes, so actually when the season will pick up again, which will be basically in the spring and summer, we would like to have student volunteers, come work with us, go out and do some outreach to the farms. And so we're going to be looking for, for students to do that with us. And also because we're kind of we're not a big program, and so we're kind of just starting out, so we could use.
So it sounds like a good opportunity for anyone that might be going into legal, social work, or some of those fields that to certainly come in and volunteer with your agency. And can you provide your contact information?
Yes, of course. So I work with South Jersey Legal Services in the Vineland office.
And tell me about some of the other services offered at South Jersey Legal Services.
So South Jersey Legal Services offers a range of different services, mostly to low-income individuals, also veterans and people with disabilities. Anything from landlord-tenant issues, people who have been denied government assistance like SSI. They also take some domestic violence cases and also do some work with wills.
I know that I had opportunity to work with the agency when I was president of the Hispanic Alliance, which we're starting up again. We actually did a discrimination lawsuit. So it's a very service organization that does help a lot the people in South Jersey, and particularly those who need those legal services.
Right, and particularly people within the Latino community, or people who are a lot of times minorities, some of the more disenfranchised members of our society. So yeah.
And again, you have offices where?
Basically throughout New Jersey, in about 9 different counties. Our office is located in Vineland, so we cover Salem and Cumberland, but there are offices anywhere from Camden all throughout Ocean County, Burlington, Cape May. There's several.
All right, well, thank you so much for sharing this information with our audience. And please stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Latino Motion. Welcome back to Latino Motion. A good segue to finish our discussion on farm workers is my recent interview with Dolores Huerta, who worked the front lines along Cesar Chavez. Let's listen in. It's an honor. It's a pleasure to be here with you. You've accomplished so much, and I know that everyone knows who Cesar Chavez is, but you were just as involved and right in front of that movement. The saying, si se puedes, you have a history. You the one that started that.
Right.
Let's talk about that.
Okay, well, that happened actually in Arizona because Cesar was doing a 25-day fast, water-only fast.
Wow.
And because they had passed a law that would make it illegal for farmers to go on strike.
Wow.
For anyone to do any kind of a boycott. And so we were doing a campaign and getting people to come. We had a mass every single night and a rally and inviting people to come to join us. And so I met with these Chicano professionals, they were attorneys, and and so I said to them, please come and help us out, come and join us. And they said, oh, Dolores, in Arizona no se puede. In Arizona, you can't do any of that. That's where it started. And then indeed, when I went back and we were having our rally, and so I told people, this is what I said to these men, that they could also help. And then I told them, que si se puede, and everybody jumped up and started yelling, si se puede, si se puede. So just very organically became a great slogan.
I have to tell you that I had the pleasure of doing a rally in the boardwalk in Atlantic City some years ago for immigration reform to bring attention to that. And the chant that I was using, "Si se puede," and never knew where it originated from, and the fact that it's the calling for civil rights in the Latino community. Remember seeing that when Obama was campaigning. A very powerful statement, and now we know what the history behind it is.
Yeah, and you know, when I met President Obama, that's what he told me. He said, "I stole your slogan." It's the first thing he said to me, and I told him, "Yes, you did."
So tell me about Cesar Chavez. He's become such an institution. Tell me a little bit about him.
Well, Cesar, you know, he only went to the 8th grade. Oh. He never even went to high school. But because his family, they lost their farm in Arizona. They had a farm. And during the Depression, they lost the farm. So they had to hit the migrant stream and become migrant workers. His father he was in his 50s at that time. So it was very hard for him. So all the kids had to chip in and also work. And so they went to many schools. And although Cesar never had a chance to go to high school, he was very smart. He always had a book under his arm. He was always reading. He was a genius.
Wow.
And I think that's important for people to remember, because a lot of times people think, oh, you've got to have a PhD to be smart. Well, Cesar never even went to high school, but he was really, really, not only was he very intellectual, intelligent, but he was also a very good strategic thinker. And I think that, and a good leader. And when we talk about a leader, he was very humble. You know, he never liked when people would say, "Que viva Cesar." He said, I hate that. He would say that because he really was the true servant of the people. He really wanted to help the workers.
That's all the time we have. Thank you for joining us once again here on Latino Motion.
Choose to get your feet wet, to learn more about protecting our environment.
Choose to read minds, to understand the human brain.
Choose to get your hands dirty, to create a masterpiece.
Stockton University offers 50 high-quality academic programs, small class sizes, and affordable tuition. Choose to match your interests and talents at one of New Jersey's nationally ranked universities.
Funding for Latino Motion is provided by Atlanticare, a member of Geisinger. Atlantic City Electric, energy for a changing world. And South Jersey Gas.